يمكن أستخلص منها يمكن العنوان بتاع فكرة
Let me focus on sustainability, especially sustainability, and that should be the mentality we have whenever we start a new project or a new initiative. And Dr. Abla referred to that earlier, and also Tevat referred to having an institutional framework. We will officially conclude the session. We are 10 minutes late, but we can open the floor for the audience before lunch. So we will get all the comments in one go, and then we will give the floor to panelists. That might take 10 minutes. Member of the Parliament, Adil Amer, asked for the floor. Engineer Qatamish. So very brief questions or comments, because many people asked to give the floor. Introduce yourself. Thank you. At the outset, I would like to thank the Center for conducting this insightful survey, but I have a question here, if I may. What is the mechanism to have a timeline to get a financing system, to motivate people, to engage development partners, to engage the media, to have models in different governorates, to engage NGOs and civil society organizations, to change the culture at schools? We need to have a vertical structure and make sure that there is a solid communication bringing together academia and the school in order to take all the elements into consideration. Finland is a case in point, and the public satisfaction of the education system is more than 70%. Qatamish? Engineer Qatamish, Central Department for Training in the Ministry of Manpower. Engineer Ayman Qatamish, Head of the Central Department for Training in the Ministry of Manpower. Thank you, Dr. Abla, for pointing to the crux of the matter, and we are all trying to work hard in the ministry. Of course, we work with TEVID, and I would like to thank Dr. Shuru. She exerted tireless efforts when it comes to training, and she followed up on trainees nationwide, even after getting the training, in order to make sure if they landed a job or not. In line with Dr. Abla in the Ministry of Manpower, we started a program to link around 2.8 million institutions to the ministry through an electronic system in order to link job seekers to the vacancies posted. And it's a nationwide system or program. Second, inspired by the study or the survey, we can say that ready-made garment needs a lot, and TEVID participated with us in 9 workshops before, but we also organized, I think, 50 workshops for sewing machine in even mobile units to reach the farthest villages in Egypt. Thank you so much. Thank you. Minister Al-Beltagi, the floor is yours. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Abla Abdellatif and her team who worked hard with her. Let me stress the fact, this is a unique study. This is an unprecedented study. Yes, it covers 516 institutions only, and it shows certain sectors, but it's an objective study to evaluate the situation and plan for the future. I would like to tell you that, for example, in 2005, in 2050, the population will be more and we will face challenges in agriculture where 36% of the population work and 4 billion US dollars worth of exports are generated from this sector, and we can double or triple this number. So TEVIT in general needs to be reformed and renovated. Egyptian farmers are no longer there. I'm referring to both male and female farmers. These people have the experience that has been passed on from one generation to another, and as you know, now they sell their farms and hoard their money in banks. In e.g. Development Strategy 2030, we have 3 main projects that has to do with modernizing field irrigation in 8 million fedans to use a modern system, and this is like a high intensive labor sector. That's why we wanted to help people in the villages through agricultural credit to start their own businesses in their own villages, to reform the irrigation sector. We also had another project linking farmers to markets, covering the food chain. So from farming to sorting, packing, cooling, and of course we need skilled labor. We have another project for extending agriculture through greenhouses. To cut a long story short, my point is from now to 2050, and I'm responsible for the agriculture committee in the Supreme Council of Universities, and we are modernizing the curricula for agriculture faculties, and we want to link the curricula in the faculties to the curricula at schools. And yes, agriculture schools cannot meet the needs of Egypt in the future. That's why we need to renovate schools, and we need to invest a lot of resources in order to have technical schools that are able to generate revenues in the future, and to help their students get their own job opportunity, and for all of that to reflect on the national economy. This is what we hope. Again, I would like to thank Dr. Abla and the Center for forward-looking study.
دكتورة ماجدة ناصر عضو
the parliamentarian and the educational committee member. I would like to thank Dr. Abla for the study, for the valuable study, and the specialized in the technical education, in which the state is interested and in which all of us are interested, because it's the right track to correct so many things in the educational system. Because if people go to the technical education, this is going to reduce the huge numbers that are enrolled in the universities, and we do not benefit from them. From what was said, I want to say that the state has exerted efforts, but the private sector and the businessmen are not aware of that. So there is a separation between the business sector, the private sector, and the government. In what sense? In the parliament, we do so many things, and the ministry supports, and the ministry proposes so many things, but lately, the technical education was developed, a technology school, especially that the technical education is different from the general education and based on partnerships and agreements with foreign entities, Italy, Switzerland. So it is on the right track. It's true that the results are not clear now, but people are not aware of that. We tackle the disadvantages of the previous system as if they are still there. Once we adopt the technology universities, of course, people are not going to change their mindsets, but we have to raise the awareness on all the steps taken big part of the legislations are well supportive, and we have talked about with Dr. Shawi, and we are going to have two things soon in the parliament. His Excellency, the President of the Republic, in one of the conferences on education, or maybe the Youth Forum, asked especially to separate Naqa from another technical education accreditation authority. And we were discussing some modifications of that we stop them to make sure of that. So this is something soon, and I think that that we are going to discuss it and finalize it very soon. And second point, the education law is very old, and it includes or unifies the technical education with the general education. But there's a fact that we are studying that how to make the current schools practical schools, productive schools, so that they guarantee their financial sustainability, and how to so that they are not only dependent on the state budget and the technical and there was a proposal to separate the technical education from the general education, and this is being studied. So the legislations are working on the topic, but I think that the steps or the fruits are going to be slow because the process is complicated. You have conducted valuable studies, Dr. Abla, especially to have established a National Council for Technical Education and Vocational Training. I have developed a whole decree on the Educational Commission, and it included all the types of education to have comprehensive strategies for education. And I was going to present it in the first session of the parliament, but I postponed it until things are clearer. So if you have any studies relevant to this, I think it's going to be adopted. But the Education Commission is going to need to change so many things in the institutions of the states. So help us to adopt it as soon as possible. Thank you so much. For comments, please, but make it short. I would like to thank the ECES for the invitation, and I consider it as an opportunity to tackle this topic. And the roadmap tackled, I think that it is very special, and it has touched all the aspects that represent the gap between the demand and the offer. Except for studying why the youth, after getting the technical diploma, why they do not try to get their own rights and go to the labor market. They start to go to an institute, to a private university, and pay money for what? To postpone being classified as an unemployed if they are enrolled in a 2-year institute or at a university, so they are considered as students and not unemployed. And you have mentioned that we have to improve the social perception or the image, and that the salary has to be decent, and but we forgot something very important, which is that we have to have a radical change, to have the courage to demolish the walls that obstruct the development of the technical education, which is the recruitment, the military recruitment. The military law, the military recruitment law differentiates between those with a degree and those without a degree. This is what makes the youth or all the graduates think about enrolling in the university to serve the state for 1 year only. Why you do not consider now that this law is an obsolete law, and now we have to care for the social justice? Why we do not have an equal rules for the recruitment so that all the youth are being dealt on the same basis? And of course, we're going to work what you have mentioned, the social image, clarifying the efforts. All these things are good, but they are not going to be fruitful, because if the youth and because the youth do not want to be recruited for a long time with respect to the military service.
بعد اذنك
انا نسيت اعرف نفسي لان كنت متحمس.
My name is Dr. Mohamed Fouad Al-Fatih, and I work in the technical education and vocational training since 1992.
فعلا بيتكرر لكن ما كناش بنهد.
So that's why I'm an advocate of the radical change. Any young person who graduates, they does not want to be qualified as an employed, so they want to be considered a student for a longer time.
معلش.
شكرا دكتورة هالة
Dr. Hala Tahir, I think the thing that we have all agreed on is that we have lost a lot of time and there's no more time to be wasted. The problems are identified and the solutions are identified. Now the roadmap is good, but it's gonna take time to be implemented. But we have reform programs that are already there, provided by so many entities, granting entities, public entities, but they have not gained any fruits. So what we should do is that any reform program for technical education and vocational training has to be depend on a monitoring mechanism. And a reform mechanism. This can give us a fruit quicker than the fruits that we might gain after waiting for the implementation of the roadmap.
يا فندم 1 2 3 وشكرا. اتفضل حاجة. تعرف نفسك.
Tharwat Abdelaziz, I'm the Director General of Al Badrawi Institute for Education and Development. I'm going to raise various questions based on the 3 sessions. The first session to the legislators, when we have a problem with respect to women to work after 7 p.m. I want an explanation. Nurses are public servants and they work after 7. So what's the problem? The second thing, the ministry representative said that the There is a quality entity that's going to be specific to the technical education. The national entity for quality was established in 2008, and it has accredited 8% of 55,000 schools. And we said that we have 154 years for the rest of schools to be accredited if they follows the same pace. The accreditation has to be of those who are not service providers. With respect to the stigma imposed on the graduates of the technical education and the TEVITA and technical education authority, so why we can separate the ministries, separate the Ministry of Education from the Ministry of Technical Education. The last thing, to Dr. Abla, thank you for the study. When we say that 80% of the needs of the laborers were identified, and it's limited to 5 occupations, 29 for garments, 6 for textiles, and this has an excess with respect to the graduates of the industrial graduates, and they more than 43,000 students. And I think this might be a recommendation of today's recommendations to modify the curricula that have to do with this part, and the competency-based curricula that have to do with the chemical industries.
Ahmed Safi. I work in evaluating projects in line with the European framework based on my personal experience. I would like to pose a question to Dr. Laila. Why can't the Parliament adopt a twinning project between the Ministry of Education and Al-Azhar to have Azhari institutes for technical education, and they are widespread in small villages? Second, to Dr. Shuru and Dr. Mohamed Omara. When I went to the Authority of Educational Buildings to find models for technical schools, they told me that the standards for designing technical schools started long time ago during the era of Dr. Bahauddin, and as Dr. Abla showed us in her presentation, for schools or training institutes abroad, I think we need to renovate that. The designs should be printed and made public in order to encourage the the private sector to engage without conditions of having 3 fedans at least as an area for the school. Mona Zakhi in the Tourism Promotion Authority. Let me ask you, does the ministry follow up on students and employ them or provide training courses, or its role ends after students graduate from technical school? Second, to what extent does the private sector contribute with the Ministry of Education when it comes to grants for trainees? Thank you for the excellent questions. We would like to get a final comment from each panelist to address the audience's questions. And Dr. Abla will be the last speaker to cover everything if something went missing. Let's start with Dr. Laila. People asked about the cooperation between the Parliament, the Ministry, and Al-Azhar. the idea and the point is valid. Thank you for raising that. I think that people now are not very keen to join Azhar institutes. For example, even class density is on the decline in Azhari schools, and I don't know if this has to do with the demographics change, because previously Azhar schools were very widespread in small villages. I think your idea is very valid to revive these kind of schools. Yes, we can sign a protocol. Thank you for the idea. Ms. Shuru, you wanted to comment? Yes, I would like to tell you, rest assured, we are working hard. Actually, there is a protocol that was signed between with the armed forces. So we are working hard, and we want to make sure that whenever students join the army, they will be trained on the skills they used to cultivate or to work on in their school days. So there is hope, and we should build on that. I will leave the other question to Dr. Omara. Mr. Hani, Ms. Magda said that there is a lack of coordination between the public sector and the private sector. 90% of what was said today is Chinese. It's my first time to hear of all these different bodies and what they do. I'm not sure why this awareness is not there in the first place, but I wanted to comment on something else. Here, the title of this conference is Roadmap, and we have a very insightful study that is very accurate and credible, but we don't want the study to be on the shelf collecting dust. We want Dr. Abla to list the recommendation of the study and of this conference to design a road map with all the stakeholders with a timeline in order for this plan to be measurable. And we want to engage the government, the parliament with us in order for this study to have a real effect on the ground rather than just presenting some figures and percentages. Dr. Amara, Dr. Ahmed asked you a question. Dr. Ahmed Safi, you asked about the model for designing industrial or technical schools. I will check with General Yusri Salim, who's the head of the Authority for Educational Buildings. You said that the models were old. They date back to 1994. Last Saturday in
With WISE, it's funded by the USAID. We developed manuals on the current situation and the future situation that is required with respect to so many things, including the buildings of Gaib. With regard to Mr. Tharwat Abdelaziz, you have asked about ITQAN, and it has to be separated from the Ministry of Education. Of course, ITQAN is separated from the ministry, and this is something impossible to be included in the mandate of the ministry. With respect to the 55,000 schools that should be accredited by NACA, in addition to the universities, different universities and faculties, when we speak about technical education programs, we talk about 2,500 schools. I think they represent less than 5%, but we need something for the programs, not the 5% of the number of the schools of the Ministry of Education. They might have an entity to guarantee their programs because NAQA is an institution accreditation. With regard to the TVITA, it's necessary because the Professional Academy for Teachers does not provide trainings. It's only for accreditation, and thus we need an entity for training of the teachers of the technical education, so that if the teachers are not qualified technically, they are not going to provide technical skills to the students. With respect to separating it from the ministry and so on, this is politics, and I'm not going, or policies, and I'm not going to take at these details. With respect to monitoring the students and employing them, yes, we have something like that. We have employment units in the schools, and we have a central unit in the technical education sector, and we have indirectorates in schools, and they assist students to have job opportunities. And there is a monitoring mechanism to see the what the students have achieved after the graduation. Thank you. Parliamentarian Manal, with respect to nursing, asked by Mr. Tharwat. There was a request received on that respect, and we are going to study it. I totally agree with the separation with the technical education from the education, because the reform is for the general education, and the technical education is considered like a second phase, despite the fact that it's what's capable of saving the state. So it has to have its own ministry. The second thing, the separation does not have to focus on the ministry, or having a ministry, because it's going to have its hierarchy and so on and so forth. I think it might be through a mechanism that gathers so many ministries, because technical education is included in Ministry of Investment and Trade and industry. So I think that the suggestion of Dr. Abla is the closest one to this solution. I think also we can have a steering committee to monitor the implementation of these recommendations and of the study. Number 4, there are already efforts exerted to with respect to the institutional assessment, like for example the training centers and service providers. I do not know this study. I think this study has not been finalized yet, but it has to be introduced into the process that we are talking about. Dr. Mohamed Megahed assisted the launch of this initiative, and I think the outputs are going to be beneficial. The fifth thing, the professional culture. Why people consider Don Bosco as different? Because in Don Bosco, people pay money, and it makes students acquire different things, special skills. If we do not change the image of the rest of the technical of Tabet and Mubarakul, we are not going to achieve equal treatment to these to all the graduates. Media as well has to play a role to raise the awareness of the people on this strategy to improve the social image of the technical graduates, technical education and graduates. Dr. Ala, final words. I think that the social perception, if we pay lots of money on technical education, I think if we change its name like it to Applied Technology, now the students of the Applied Technology think that they are in the first line or in the first pioneers, because the curricula is competency based. The schools are very well equipped, are very clean. The training is provided with high quality. All these things, the capacity building, the private sector, when it cooperates with the Ministry of Education, they provide them with training on leadership, on communication skills, teamwork. All these things build their personalities and make them feel that they are pioneers and come first. I think we can work in parallel with the technology education. Another thing, the students know that there are technology universities, so they guarantee having a future opportunity.
So they have a chance to complete their education, and even if they don't complete their education, they might have a job opportunity to. So either way, technological education can provide many solutions for the problems. Thank you. Last comment from Dr. Abla. We are preventing these kind people from enjoying their lunch. I will still have a video to play as well. The Ministry for Technical Education, I'm against that. Dr. Mohamed Yusuf is a great man, but everything is done in a fragmented manner. That's why we want to have a Supreme Council to work with everyone. And Dr. Amara said not everyone is aware of what we do. And I said, yes, this is not your role. It's the role of the Ministry of Culture, for example. Second, I would like to thank you for your comments and thank you for referring to the conscription issue, because it's very relevant. People always think of ثانوية عامة and the score.
عشان يقعد ياخد فترة بسيطة. شكرا لحضرتك على انك عامله مشروع القانون.
Thank you.
فني ضرورة.
Yes, the separation of technical education is key, and we can benefit from the studies you conducted. Of course, what we did will not be a study to be put on the shelf. We send our studies to the office of the president, and in the very same hall we conducted a conference on handicrafts, and we recommended establishing a Supreme Council for the handicrafts, and then a directive for the president's office came to the Ministry of Industry. I really like the idea of forming a steering committee, so when it comes to next steps, we will send that to the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Manpower and have a program, and we will form a steering committee to draft an action plan, which is already there. The team has been working for 2 years and they exerted tireless and commendable efforts. So part of the plan is already there. And we will try to move forward. Certain areas need to be researched. Certain areas need to be developed. Like, for example, the institutional framework, which is the engine of the car we want to run. Thank you so much, Dr. Abla. So let's all be optimistic before concluding this session. Do you know what is the biggest company when it comes to exporting in Egypt? Do you know that?
Samsung Egypt. You know that the Samsung factories, where are they? In Egypt, in Beni Suef, in the Upper Egypt. It's just a call for optimism. That we have good things. The biggest exporting company that export high-end electronics, something very technical. It is in Upper Egypt. So everything is possible. If Samsung is in the Upper Egypt, it's the biggest exporting country, so everything is possible, regardless the fact that we have so many complications. Before we conclude, ECS team, please stand up. I have to thank them personally. These are those who are behind the success that we have seen. I would like to thank them very much. Thank you, Dr. Abla. Thank you, administratives. And now We're going to watch the video of Dr. Mohamed Megahed.
انا عايزه اعمل شكر خاص للفريق
Special thanks to the teamwork, especially Dr. Sahar and Dr. Rama for their efforts, because this study has taken a lot. Once they take vacation and refresh, I'm gonna take them back to work.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. طبعا وزارة التربية والتعليم بترحب بانعقاد هذا المؤتمر الذي يعني جاء في وقته للانطلاق بمنظومة التعليم والتدريب الفني والمهني، وطبعا الجهد مشكور
I would like to thank the ECES for the efforts exerted, and I wish for all the attendees fruitful workshop. And I think that the recommendations are going to be beneficial for us in the ministry. I would like to talk about what we are currently doing with respect to improvement of the tablet. Our constitution is linked directly with Article 20 that tackles this type of education, and it's a separate article that stipulates the fact that the state has to encourage technical education in all its aspects and forms, and should be developed by the state for two objectives: for the outcomes to satisfy the needs of the labor market, and that the training processes have to be according to the international standards for accreditation, and this is the base of strategy of 2030, satisfying the needs of labor market and work according to the international quality standards. What we do to achieve these two objectives: we have like 2 million students distributed into 4 occupations or 4 educational types. Most of the students, or 50% of them, are enrolled into the industrial education, and this is, of course, is very necessary for any industrial process that's necessary for the economic development of Egypt. A third, or a little bit more than the third, has to do with the commercial education, and 12 to 13% agricultural education, and 3% tourism education. So this is the distribution of the 2 million students. The number of the schools are like 2,500 schools. 300 of them are official or formal schools that are registered in GAIP, with the walls, with the port, with porters. But we have another type of schools, what we call the annex classes, and this is because we do not have enough buildings inside the schools. So number of the formal schools is 2,300, and thus we add them to what we call the schools with the next classes. A number of schools affiliated to the Ministry of Education, 22 million students, and 55,000 schools all over Egypt. So what happens with respect to technical education? These occupations are so diverse. This is a simple introduction on the size of the system. What we do to satisfy the labor market needs: we have a comprehensive transformation in all the educational programs. What we do, we transform them into competence-based curricula, schools with a competency-based curricula. Competences required by the labor market and the private industries. So we might summarize this with skills and behaviors. Whether it's manufacturing or tourism or any department, we agree with the businesses on the requirements and the qualifications they need, and then we together agree on the competences that should be acquired by the students. Based on that, we identify the units of the curriculum, train the teachers so that they can start to implement them, and during examinations we engage the competent industry representatives. How far we are in this process, the programs are so many, especially with respect to the industrial education. We have finished the programs of the agricultural education, and anything implemented further is going to be additional. The tourism programs as well have been finalized. Commercial programs are going to be modified, and with respect to industrial programs, there are 75 curricula, and like 20% of them were covered because it has so many details, and we started to implement these curricula in 105 schools all over Egypt in the 27 governorates. Curricula are divided into units, and they are currently being given in 105 schools. What is our future action plan? We have developed 36 curricula in the dual system. Is going to be included, and we have 65,000 students. Students who spend from 2 to 3 days at the school and the rest of the days in the factories to get in-company training. By September 2020, we are going to have more than 40% of the curricula developed and modified. This is with respect to the first objective to satisfy the labor market needs. The second,
linking the technical education to employers or to private sector companies, and we worked on different tracks. First, encouraging and expanding dual education schools, and we also started this applied technological schools initiative. We started in September 2018 with 3 schools, and this year we have 11 schools. We are opening these schools nowadays, and I want to talk about the nature of these schools. These schools meet the needs of the job market in line with international standards. How we do so? We forge a tripartite partnership between the Ministry of Education and an industrial partner and a quality assurance international body in order to regulate the educational process, to selectively choose students, teachers, and curricula in order to be in line with Article 20 of the Egyptian Constitution. Many people, many students wanted to join these applied technological schools, despite the fact that their scores can easily admit them into public secondary education schools. Many people people wanted to join these schools because the education there of high quality in line with the international standards. Students get pocket money, they get trainings along with other services and benefits. When people graduate, there is a good chance for them to get a job opportunity in one of the companies. For example, we started with companies working in electronics, refrigerators, TVs, so on and so forth. There was also another company working in building and construction. So these are the three main schools in 2018. In 2019, we have a school whose partner is an expert in accessory design, which is new to Egypt. And the ministry cannot cover this specialization. That's why dual education is best to do so, because students spend the 3 days at school and the 3 days at factories or workshops designing accessories. There are many examples. There is a public company working on agriculture that is now responsible for the school. We work with the IBM, of course, and it's all owned by the Ministry of Education, but investors help us a lot. They invest in our students and in our teachers, and they assign good incentives for teachers, and they give pocket money and financial rewards and a hot meal and recreational activities for our students. So in our roadmap, we want to add at least 10 schools on an annual basis in order to have enough schools in the next years. And we depend on the investors, and the support of the president is unprecedented. It's unwavering, and that will enable us to build 100 schools. I'd like to go on covering the pillars, curricula, PPP. There are two main points which have to do with technical and vocational education and training. Now in Egypt we have technological colleges. It's part of the higher education, but from a technical point of view, and it's very important to care for the quality assurance system, whether pre-university education or for higher education. All over the world there are independent bodies for this type of education, because it's a work-based education. Students spend 60% of their time at workshops or at factories. That's why if you want to accredit the school in Egypt, then we should take that into consideration. Because again, it's a work-based education. That's why quality assurance and accreditation should take the nature of this education in work. That's why we proposed a bill to the cabinet that will be referred to the parliament soon. And we called it Itqan. We are lucky to find this name, Itqan, which means perfection in English. Last but not least, in Tebet, 10% of teachers and admin staff work in the Ministry of Education. So 1.3 million teachers work in the ministry. Some of them work in technical education. So it's good to train teachers to be able to work in this competency-based system. And this takes lots of time and effort. That's why we are establishing a professional academy for technical education schools to be accredited and to be given work permits. Of course, this will take years. We trained 3,000 teachers this year, but we want this process to go for 3 or 4 years in order to transform this sector to be modern and in line with international standards. Finally, this new competency-based education system is adopted in the applied technological colleges, just as the system, or like the system in European countries, Korea and Singapore.
Is changing the evaluation system, and this was done already. The new system we can call it's based on the students, and this is what's required by 2030 strategy. And all the applicants from the countries make the students interactive. Each student has to have his own file or her own file to register all the activities conducted, all the practical activities. So primary indicators show that the students enjoy this. They are not only receiving information, but they are participating in its production. We have so many ideas to help them to gather information from the bank of information. We have so many challenges, of course. Respect to teachers, especially. Last thing I would like to say, media always say that we want to improve the social perception of the technical education. This is something very important, of course. But we believe in the ministry that it's important, but the social perception is not going to be improved only with words. Improvement is going to happen when it is really improved. When we have a quality entity for technical education, when teachers are well trained, the social perception is going to be improved on its own. Thank you so much.